From freak accidents to miraculous recoveries, these are the incredible tales of those who have defied the odds and survived against all medical reasoning. Before we hop in the video, I just wanted to let you know to keep going. I know it may seem like you're not going to push through whatever you may be going through, but don't give up. Stand yourself back up, dust yourself off, keep pushing forward. You've got this. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, enough of my blabbering. Let's hop in today's video. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. There is always some embarrassing question we end up asking online. You know the usual. You open the private tab, ask the question, and hope that your FBI agent isn't paying too much attention to you. But no longer do you have to fear the judgment of your FBI agent. We have technology. We have Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is an application and browser extension that allows you to stay safe online by masking your current location and virtually putting you in another. Something that I notice crop up a lot more online is geo-blocked media. As a heavy music listener, I find myself often getting annoyed when music gets geo-blocked and leaves me unable to enjoy it. Luckily though, that's no longer an issue. Surfshark VPN allows you to bypass geo-blocked movies, videos, and even music. But Caden, I hear you say, I have so many different devices. Is it even possible to connect all of them? Well, of course, and that's not a worry at all. Surfshark VPN allows you to connect an unlimited number of devices. From your phone, laptop, tablet, desktop computer, whatever. There's always going to be space for internet protection. Go ahead and use my promo code NIGHTDEAL to not get only 83% off of a 24-month plan, but you also get 3 months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Either scan the QR code or click the link in the description below. Thank you once again, Surfshark VPN, for sponsoring this video. Lawnmower Nightmares. We'll start off with the story of a little boy named Paul. The year is 1996, and at just 8 years old, Paul already loved mechanics and had learned how to fix many different small engines. Living in Deerfield, Kansas, a city with less than 1,000 residents, there wasn't much else to do. One day, Paul's father came home with an old flathead Briggs & Stratton 5.5 HP engine. Although the engine did not work, Paul's father knew it would be a great project to work on fixing with Paul. See, in their garage, they had an old riding lawnmower. You know the ones. Sit down, ride. Yeah, I know you know. Unfortunately, the lawnmower didn't have an engine, and the blades were broken, basically making it a paperweight in the garage. So the plan was to fix up the old Briggs & Stratton engine, mount it onto the lawnmower, and leave Paul with a new toy to ride around in the yard. Paul got so excited to fix this that the next day, he sat in school, unable to concentrate, just thinking about all the fun he could have on the old broken lawnmower. As soon as the bell rang at the end of the day, Paul ran home to work on the engine. Although he wasn't quite experienced enough to fix it on his own, he was able to at least disassemble it, so that way his father could come home and at least take a crack at it. The father and son worked on the engine all night, and by bedtime, the engine was running perfectly. The next day went down in a similar fashion, and they mounted the engine onto the lawnmower and got it running. Every day for the next few weeks, Paul would load up the lawnmower with some gas and ride it around like it was his own little car. I imagine a riding lawnmower is one of the most exciting toys a kid could receive. But who knows, maybe I'm lame. I think having access to a drivable vehicle at like 8 would be pretty dope. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Flash forward about a month, and Paul and his older sister Stacy, who was 12 at the time, were riding around the yard on a nice, beautiful Sunday afternoon. Because they were on the lawnmower together, Paul was sitting at the back and in a position that he wasn't really used to at the time. That's when things turned south. Paul's shoelace had come undone, and the lawnmower's back spindle began to wrap around it. Even though they were driving very slowly, once Paul noticed the tug at his foot, it was already too late. He was pulled off of the lawnmower and was being dragged around the yard. At 12 years old, and in a panic, I imagine Stacy didn't really know how to react in the moment, and instead of stopping the lawnmower entirely, she put it in reverse. The lawnmower then drove over Paul. The following moments were horrifying. As the lawnmower made its way over Paul's body, his lung was severed and 2 points along his spine were snapped, and there was a piercing into his right kidney. How this little kid handled something like this, I have no idea. I think it's nothing short of a miracle. Like, I have no idea how else you could survive something like that. I felt the thing roll onto me, then everything went blank. Couldn't see, move, speak, or anything. No pain as well. All I remember was the blackness. As Paul's father heard the screams of his daughter, he ran over to see the horrifying scene as Paul laid on the ground, not moving. It's not exactly clear if Paul's heart had stopped entirely at this point, but he wasn't breathing properly, understandably. So, Paul's father ran over to his body and began performing CPR to get his heart beating again. Paul woke up slightly and could feel the pain in his back. With only one lung holding on for dear life, his breaths were very short. By this point, his mother had called the ambulance, which was nearby. Paul was told to not move as much as possible by his father. As the ambulance got to the scene, Paul passed out once again. Between the ride to the hospital and going to the ER, Paul's heart would stop beating. The ambulance tried to resuscitate Paul, but gave up and pronounced him dead at 6:06 p.m. Paul's dad insisted, almost violently, pushing the doctors to carry on. After about 5 minutes, his heart began to start beating again. Paul remembers waking up, but just barely. He saw the medics, the doctors dressed in white. They were in the process of stitching him up. That's not sure if something I would want to wake up and see. He remembers seeing his grandmother, who had passed away when he was 3 years old. She stood there, smiling, as the rest of his family were, obviously, in a panic. With a dear love for his Nana, she gave him comfort in this crazy situation. For a third time, everything went dark, and according to Paul's parents, his heart stopped again, this time for about 12 minutes. Paul didn't wake up for a while, but during his sleep, it happened again, this time nearly 20 minutes, as his father pushed the doctors to not give up. It was a small town, and the father knew the doctors personally. The doctors let the parents know that no matter the circumstances, there was a 98% chance, if not less, that Paul's brain would be dead by now. But it seems like Paul didn't like the sound of that, because over the next few months, the 8-year-old recovered from the freak accident. Paul now works as a mechanic. 27 years later, he surfs, he has no mental issues from the accident, and has a crazy story to tell. Here's a picture of Paul's scar from the situation. Speed has not killed yet. About 17 years ago, Michael and his friends were hanging out together just after graduating high school. It was a hot summer day, so they wanted to get more adventurous instead of sitting around watching TV all day. So, him and the boys decided to go to Michael's friend's house, which was on a farm. Here, they were free to do whatever they really wanted to do, and one of the things they wanted to do on this particular day was ride around on some quad bikes. Unfortunately, there weren't enough quad bikes on the farm for everybody, but there was an old 3-wheeler trike that nobody really used. Eventually, after finding the keys, Michael jumped right onto the trike, and it seemed perfectly fine. Excited to get going, the squad jumped on their motorbikes and drove along the dirty road. They were trying a bunch of tricks and tearing around the farm grounds. Michael loved to drive as fast as he could, and for some reason, the trike managed to drive even faster than these newer quad bikes that his buddies were on. So he's just absolutely whizzing past his boys, and eventually managed to break away from the group. Unfortunately, Michael and his friends didn't realize that the trike was not in the best condition and was barely looked after by its owners. Even if they knew this, I imagine there's a good chance that Michael would have still ridden the trike anyway. I mean, let's be honest, if all my friends are on quad bikes and I'm the only guy that doesn't have one, I'll use the beat up little trike thing, okay? So, Michael, trying his best to break away from the rest of the pack, was speeding down a hill when he hit a slight bump on the road. All of a sudden, the pins holding the front axle to the frame of the trike buckled and sheared. The trike somehow split into 2 entirely different pieces. At the moment of impact, his friends couldn't even see him anymore. Michael was still sitting and holding the front of the handlebars in complete disbelief and not knowing what to do with the situation. His body was forced forward and the handlebars bounced up and struck Michael just below his voice box. Michael fell to the ground, and as if things hadn't already been crazy enough, the back of the bike rolled over his legs and broke it. He got up and tried to call out to his friends who had just seen him, but because of the crushed windpipe, he could barely speak and struggled to get anything out of his voice. Michael would then fall over into a fetal position, gasping for any pieces of air that he could get. The friends called the ambulance, and about 15 minutes later, a chopper arrived to cart Michael to the hospital. While waiting for the chopper to come around, Michael had already accepted his fate. At the age of 17, he was about to die. Trying his best to tell his friends and family in the situation that he loved them, but barely had any energy left, The paramedics explained that his collarbone had broken and had likely gone through the windpipe all the way to the back of his neck. They popped him onto a stretcher and inserted a mask that basically forced oxygen into his body. Unfortunately, this just seemed to do nothing, as Michael passed out. During his 15-minute flight to the hospital, Michael died. As he was fading and realized that death was imminent, he thought to himself, "Aren't I supposed to see a tunnel and light and all that nonsense?" As if he called it upon himself, he then saw the light. When Michael explains what happened at that moment, he speaks about it as vivid imagery. Unlike our normal memories that fade away, he explains that this memory lasts, and he can still think of it as if it were just this morning. As Michael describes the experience, he says there was a complete feeling of complete oneness with all of existence. During this time, the paramedics on the chopper were transporting Michael to a larger medical center. The only issue was that this particular hospital was 45 minutes away, and at the time, Michael was not looking so good. They made the call that he wouldn't make it to the larger hospital and opted for a smaller local one. A few minutes later, Michael was laying on a surgeon's bed where multiple doctors stood looking to find Michael's main issue. The impact of the trike accident hadn't torn through his skin, and all was internal damage rather than external. One younger doctor made the call that would save Michael's life. At this point, Michael's oxygen count was well below the required limits, and he should have been brain dead. What the doctor did next was crazy to me. They opened up Michael's chest and literally just shoved an oxygen tube into his chest, and then moved him to another hospital. I'm sorry, but that's crazy to me. Like, science, dude. Gotta love science. That is crazy to me. After a near 6-hour surgery, the surgeons drained the fluids that had entered his lungs and repaired his trachea. For the next week, Michael laid in a coma, but there was enough brain activity for the doctors to believe that he would recover. After 30 days, Michael made his way home, and although the situation scared him, it was Michael's family that took the greatest hit mentally. His parents were told that he had died at one point. They were told that brain damage was inevitable, and that even if he recovered, he'd need tubes in his neck for the rest of his life. Michael stood against all odds, though, and made it through to hell and back. Or, okay, maybe not, hopefully not hell, but let's move on. The idea of passing away is something that affects people all around the world. At one point, we are going to have to meet that fate. So, did this video help you maybe alleviate some of those nerves? Did it make you even more scared? Did I miss a story that you feel like I really should have mentioned here? Let me know in the comments below. Before we hop in the end segment, I would like to have the little patron scroll. Obviously, you don't have to do this, but it does mean so much to me. Thank you for supporting my weird little videos on the internet. It honestly means so much. Thank you all. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, why not like and subscribe? It definitely helps me out. If you didn't, though, why not dislike? And let me know what I can improve on for next time. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you on the next one.